Hey everyone, this is Faisal, certified high performance coach and a lifelong student of philosophy, spirituality, and sciences. Today is challenge day 16, and today's challenge topic is identity attachment. I know it's a vague topic for many, but I'll explain it. But before I go there, I wanted to thank everyone. I wanted to honor all those who are taking part in this discussion, to change our life, this discussion to learn, and this discussion to create an open mind, an open perspective about our life, about our how we perceive life, how we look at life. And what are some of the practical things that we can apply in our life to raise the quality of our life? And sometimes to do that, we have to go into vague topics. So once again, thank you very much, and thanks for encouraging other people to join in. I know some new people are coming in and leaving comments, so that's really good. And I hope you keep liking and sharing the video so we can get more people involved in this life-changing discussion. So today's topic once again is identity attachment. I know it's a vague name for it, but I couldn't find a more clear name. So before I go into the topic, I have 3 questions for you. What does your identity mean to you? That's one question. And second question, I don't know if that was second or third. I think I got confused with the order. So the first one was, what does identity mean to you? The second one, what is your identity? Who are you? And I want you to really think about this, because it's a very complicated topic, and I know it's a very vague topic, but it'll be interesting. And the last question, where do you think you got the idea for the identity that you mentioned? Okay, think about those questions and post your answer. And if you haven't come up with an answer, then keep watching the video. Okay, so as much as this topic is vague, it's also a very practical topic, and I'll go on to explain why that is. Now, our identity, when we think about it, who are we? And as soon as you ask a person, who are you? First of all, they'll tell you their name, whatever that might be, and then they'll go on to explain that they're from this place, and they are part of this religion, or they're part of this organization, or they are a part of this profession, such as doctor, engineer, or they'll say that they're a singer, a writer, a speaker in my case. And then if you keep going on, they'll add to it, oh, I'm a dad, I'm a son, I have a child, I have a wife, I have a family. And then if you keep digging more, you'll go into, oh, I have this car, I have this profession, this dream that I'm working towards. So when you think about all these things, when we think about who we really are, like, there's such a broad concept of who we are. There are so many things that we associate ourselves with. It could be, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm an Afghan, I'm an Indian, I'm an American, I'm a Canadian, I'm a European, or I'm a doctor, I'm an engineer, or I'm a husband, I'm a wife, I'm a son, I'm a friend. Like, we have so many things that we consider as part of our identity. And then we go through these broader identities. Oh, I'm a human being. But what do all these mean? And where did we get the idea that we are these things? Are they natural? Were we born with these identities? If you really think about it, no, we weren't. None of these identities we were born with, we were either conditioned to accept them as they were, or our life experience taught us that we that we need to have certain so-called attachments with different aspects of who we are, or along the lines we saw other people adapting similar things and we just followed them. But aside from that, there is a natural aspect to it. As human beings, like I've mentioned several times, we're born into a family, we're born into social structure, so automatically we will attach significance to how we are related to our environment, to our family, to our friends, to our community in general. So that part is natural to us. And the healthy aspect of it is very powerful, because when we have that natural connection with our environment and with the people around us and with ourselves, it creates a very uplifting feeling within us, and it drives us forward, because much of what we do is not really in a lot of senses for us. It's always to give to either our family, to our environment, to the things around us, to the society around us. And in the process we learn and we experience and we get a lot of things back. But so why did I bring the idea of attachment in this? Now, attachment for some people might be a positive word, but when you go into spirituality, attachment in itself creates a negative effect. And it's a very, as vague as it sounds, it's a very practical idea, because as one great teacher, Jiddu Krishnamurti, put it, don't look at the word in itself, because people get scared of the idea of detachment, because there's a law called the law of detachment in spirituality, or disidentification with the things or people around you. But it's not a scary idea. And what Krishnamurti said was that we have to look at the consequences of attachment. And I've experienced that in my life very deeply, so I understand what it means. So let me explain what that means. So for example, let's say, I'll start with a mother. And this happens a lot in collectivistic cultures, or in cultures that are in the Eastern world compared to the more individualistic cultures in the West. But that happens here as well, but it's more so on that side. So when a mother has a child, what ends up happening in a society that's surrounded by the idea that, oh, that's you being a mom is a big part of who you are, which is fine. That's I think that's that in itself, being a mother is a very important aspect of female being. But what ends up happening is that identity of that person becoming a mother, that becomes the only identity. And it becomes such a strong, and it's not that natural connection and love that we're talking about between a mother and a child. That's there naturally, there is no question about that. But what I'm talking about is that mother's idea of attachment and that clinging to that child. So the mother's idea of her existence becomes associated with that child. So when you say my child, we say that very casually. So when a mother says my child, literally that child becomes part of who you are. So as time goes on, the mother takes care of the child, and as the child grows up into adulthood, what the mother realizes that there's another aspect to that child, that she might consider that child to be her whole world, but the child starts to grow up and creates his or her own identity. And that's natural, because we're all here to discover ourselves. But what the problem with that, the challenge with that, is that as soon as that starts happening, the mother starts to lose her identity. And that's one of the causes of suffering for many human beings, because as soon as you lose that identity, then you become empty within. And as soon as you become empty, you're trying to look for things to fill that void. And then that's where the pain comes in, that's where the emptiness comes in, that's where the suffering comes in, that's where the jealousy comes in, the anger comes in. and all the rest that, oh, and then you will hear statements such as, I took care of you all my life, but now you don't care about me. And that happens not just between a mother and a child, it happens between many other relationships. It happens between romantic relationships where they get involved in the beginning, and they get so attached to each other, but as life goes on, the two discover that they have their own interest in life, they have their own purpose in life, they have their own journey in life. But sometimes in that relationship, people don't realize that that when you look at the other person, that person has their own identity, and it might be separate from the other person. And when that happens, there's a lot of suffering, because they thought that when they got involved in that relationship, that person was literally them, or that person was theirs in a sense. And that's why we get these terms: my husband, my wife, my brother, my sister. So we kind of associate in a way an ownership to people, to the things around us. And this goes on even further. We get attached to things that are around us. We can get attached to a couch, we can get attached to cars, we can get attached to our profession, we can get attached to our religion, the idea of a religion. We can get attached to a public figure. If you've seen people, we can get attached to a sports team. If you've seen people going nuts in the news over a sports team winning and losing, and it's not even funny these days, because people are creating violence because of that. And so then, why do we get attached, and why does it happen to begin with? That's a very complicated answer, but it is very likely that that person who gets attached to things too easily, and this is where we get the idea of addiction too. When people get addicted to drugs, alcohol, and all overeating and all sorts of other things, and when psychologists and scientists try to research this, they realize that things such as the drug and alcohol or food, they are not the cause of the addiction. They might have added to that addiction, but something within that person that caused him or her to be addicted to that thing. Because there are a lot of people that drink, but they're not alcoholics. There are a lot of people that eat. They don't overeat. They're not obese. But there are people, something happens in their brain or in their psyche or in their and within themselves, that they get attached to things. And it's not far-fetched to say that we're addicted to a lot of things in our life. And when you study the whole idea of addiction, it's an emptiness that many people have. And what we do is we try to fill it with different things. And this goes to the point where even in religion and spirituality, where spirituality teaches you the idea of detachment, that don't become too attached to the things in your life, but then people get attached to the religion, that, oh, this is my religion, it's the best religion, and every other religion is wrong, and that I must protect this with all my heart and soul. And when you look at history, it's filled with people going nuts over the idea that we need to kill other people in the name of God, yet God taught you to be peace-loving, to protect each other, to love each other. And people go nuts over the idea that somebody's insulting a religious figure, and that religious figure himself told people, don't worry too much about that. Don't worry about what people think of you, or don't get too attached to the idea that people look at you in a negative way. It's what matters is what you think, what you perceive. And this becomes really crazy. And why is it important in our life? And the reason it's important, because when we look at our life, we need to really think. We need to become really self-aware. What are the things that we are attached to? And you will know what you're attached to when, even if there's a slightest separation, you're going to feel the pain. Because it's not the other person, it's that idea of the other person, it's the other thing, it's your profession, it's your idea of success. They're all attached with what you think of yourself. So if you think of yourself as a businessman and you lose your business, literally you have completely fallen apart if your business goes bankrupt, because that business was you. So then we need to understand, are we really the things that we attach ourselves to? This doesn't mean that we reduce our affection. This doesn't mean that we reduce our desire to become more. This doesn't mean that we don't have things. But what it does mean is that, do we need to be extreme to the point where we create pain and suffering in our life and add the same pain and suffering in other people's life that we're attached to, or hold on to things that are not necessarily worth holding on to? People hold on to the idea of money so hard that the whole concept of money becomes their life, and they get attached to the idea that they need to make more money, and in the process they lose relationships, they lose connections, they lose their experience of life. So it becomes an extreme. Whenever you think about the great teachers, whether that be Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, or Buddha, or Lao Tzu, or Confucius, all these great teachers taught us that we need to understand that there is a balance in life. There's a natural balance. There's a moderation in life. And when you go outside of that moderation towards the extremes, and that could be either extremes, then you're losing perspective. You're losing that natural balance. You're going against natural laws. You're going against divine laws. And that creates suffering in itself. So really think about who you are as a person, and what do your connections in your environment mean to you. And now this is even more important, because I'll keep going with the idea of a mother being attached to the child. So the challenge with that is two ways. One, that the mother feels empty after the child starts to discover that he or she has her own identity, her own life to move forward to. And then, but the challenge here is that mother consistently, because of her emptiness, she always guilts the child, and this happens with the father too sometimes, where it makes the child feel guilty, or the son or the daughter feel guilty that, oh, I brought you up all my life, but you're not as attached to me as I am to you, without any understanding of what's going on in their life. But it comes from a source of emptiness. A source of lack of identity and internal identity within themselves. And what ends up happening is that it has a two-way effect. So the first one is that the mother feels empty, or the parent feels empty, and then the other one is that it affects the child as well, because that whole source of guilt that's put on the child, or the son or the daughter, that carries on in that child's life. They seem to think that they're doing something wrong, that my parents brought me up, but I'm not really fulfilling my parents' expectation of who I should be. But who we should be, is that really related to what our parents expect us? Or is it what we naturally aspire to be? Or what we are driven to go towards? And this is a hard thing to ask yourself of. And I've asked this question before, do you live your life based on the expectations set for you? Or do you live your life based on the standards that you have within yourself? And this is a very important topic to think about, and it always affects the two sides, especially in relationships where we becomes involved with other people. Like this could be even with brothers and sisters, where they have certain expectations of each other based on the fact that they lived with each other for a long time, and then what we realize is that when they associate the idea that you're my brother, you're my sister, you must do this for me, and I expect this of you, without any understanding of what's going on in the other person's life, that creates challenges in relationships. And if you look at it the other way around, with friendships, it becomes very interesting, because when people become friends with other people, there's a very little attachment. If they're good friends, they're always there for each other, yet there's not always that guilt and shame and obligations attached to that relationship. And when you look at it, a lot of people are even closer with their friends than they are with their family, yet there's more expectations and attachments and obligations with family. So why is that? Because we get too attached to things. And friendship is a choice, and they created it on their own. And then the two friends realized that it needs to be a friendship of growth. And when we think about it as a natural concept, if we go we think of us as divine beings, as beings that are here to experience our own journey. And I've always wrote about this and talked about this, that whether that be your brother, your sister, your husband, your wife, your children, we're all here as spiritual beings to experience a life. We all have our own journey, and the rest of us are here to support each other. We're not here to hold people back from experiencing life. We're here to allow them to experience life. If that experience means being together, that's great, if it's everybody's will. But if that means that a person picks a journey where they are on their own, or they go on a different path, then I think that's also a choice, and people should respect that. And when you think about the idea of attachment, a person, I'll give you an analogy, a person who is attached to a flower, that person will pluck it to have it. And a person who loves the flower, that person will allow the flower to blossom and grow. And that's the difference between attachment and love. If we allow other people, if we encourage other people to grow in our life, if we allow them to become more than they are, then it affects us positively, and it gives them that sense of acceptance. And that's between people and other and connections and attachment to things. But then we also, there's this deep spiritual thing where that we need to solve things internally before even looking at things externally. And we get attached to our thoughts. What do our thoughts mean a lot to us? Our thoughts that are much of our thoughts that are given to us by society, that's defined to us by society, by our family, by our community. But we think that it's our own thoughts just because we've heard it all our lives. We get attached to our pain even. Eckhart Tolle in his book, The Power of Now, talks about this, where he says that he terms it the pain body, where the people get so attached to their pain that they become their pain. And that's true. When you become your pain, that pain will cause you suffering. But if you realize that a pain is a part of you, but it is not the whole you, then it's just an experience that you're going through. It might be painful, but it's not suffering. There's a distinction here. And this is what it is. And so how do we go through this? So first of all, it's the self-awareness, to become aware of this idea that we don't need to become too attached to the things around us. Because the causes that we cause suffering within us, and we cause suffering towards other people. Or if it's attachment to things, we cause suffering to the thing to ourselves because we're attached to the things like money, like possessions, like the rest of the stuff. It doesn't mean you shouldn't have those things. It means that when you get attached or clinged to it, if it goes away, it causes you suffering. And we talked a lot about the observer thinker, and it falls into this category where when you think of yourself as a divine being, and that's what I do, that's my opinion, and that's what I've come to accept, that we are divine spiritual beings here experiencing life through this body. And when we think of that, we're much bigger than this body. We're much bigger than the identities that we associate ourselves with. We're here on a journey to experience this life. And when we think of ourselves as that, we can be that bigger observer of our thoughts, our emotions, our relationships, the observer of the things that we do. And when you become that observer, not that judgmental person that says, oh, you're not doing things properly, oh, you're not doing enough in your life to be worthy, or that towards other people that, oh, that person is doing this wrong, that wrong. It's not that. The thinker always does that, and a lot of people call it the ego, always thinks like that. But when you think about your higher self, and some call it the soul, others call it higher self, inner self, whatever you want to call it, that thinks or that perceives things in a very broader concept. And if you allow that, by being the observer self, by being the bigger self, then you will notice your life unfolds in front of you like a book. You stop being so attached to the idea of that you are somebody's husband, or you are in a profession, or you're a doctor, you're a coach, or you're this, you're that. When these things break down, and in life it happens, relationships break down, professions go down, and I've seen this happen in war, like where I come from Afghanistan. After the war, people lost their professions. They were army generals, they were doctors, they were engineers, and then when they came to a different country, they were literally nobody in terms of their profession. And then they got so attached to the idea, a lot of them became miserable. And we need to realize that all the things that we do, the things that we have, the people that we are connected with, we are not it. In this dimension, at least. I'll talk about oneness later, that we are all one, but in this concept of attachment, that we have our own journey. We need to love, we need to respect, we need to accept, we need to be, you need to buy, you need to have things, but when you become clinged to the idea of these things, it causes all sorts of consequences, whether that be anger, jealousy, hurt feelings, sorrow, suffering, and that's what we need to avoid. And to avoid that, you need to become bigger than your attachments. You need to become bigger than the idea that you need to cling to things, you need to own things to be somebody. It doesn't matter what you have, it doesn't matter who you're connected to. At the end of the day, you are a being here to experience life, regardless of those things. And it's a very hard idea to explain because it's a very experience-based idea, just like some of the other ideas we've talked about. And when you understand it, when you get it, when you know it internally, you'll know what I'm talking about. But my job was to introduce it to you. Now it's your job to think about it. Okay, so again, I want to hear from you guys. What does your identity mean to you? Who are you? Where did you get the idea of your identity from? Or the second question, what does your identity mean to you? So go ahead and answer those questions, and I look forward to reading your answers. I know this might be a complicated topic, but I'm telling you it's a very useful topic. And I look forward to discussing future topics and talking about the future topics. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Have a great day. If you loved or even liked the video or this episode, you can do two things right now. One, you can click on the subscribe tab right here on the screen or in the info area if you can't click on the screen. So you're up to date on all my free training, on all the free training that I send on my YouTube channel on a regular basis. And two, you can click on the success indicator tab on the screen or in the info section, so you can get the training, the thorough training that I created for you, that has 10 factors that will determine whether or not you will be successful at anything that you do or want to do. And it will also help you create more success at anything that you want to do in life. So, and this will also get you subscribed to my newsletter, so I can send you more of these free training on a regular basis that I don't post on my YouTube channel. So make sure you click on those two buttons or tabs, and make sure you like and share this video. Make sure you post your comments in the comment section below so we can get more people involved in our community right here. Thank you very much. Have a great day.